Circle's stock just fell off a cliff. Coinbase tanked with it. And we're not talking about some market dip. We're talking about the single worst day in Circle's history. One reason, 3 words in a bill nobody outside crypto even knows exists yet. Yield on stablecoins. Banned. Completely illegal. And what happens next could either destroy DeFi entirely or force it to become something actually legitimate for the first time. So let's start with the moment everything changed, March 2026. A revised draft of something called the Clarity Act hits Congress. It's a stablecoin regulation bill. Sounds boring, right? It's not. Buried in the language is a provision that says platforms cannot offer yield, interest, or any return whatsoever on stablecoins. Not your stablecoins. Not yield staking. Nothing. The moment this language went public, the market responded like someone had pulled the fire alarm. Circle, the company behind USDC, saw its stock crater. Coinbase's chart looked like it got hit by a truck. And that's when everyone realized this isn't some theoretical regulation debate happening in a committee room. This is an existential threat. But here's what makes this actually dangerous. The bill has bipartisan support. Let me break down what this bill actually does, because the details matter more than you think. The Clarity Act proposes a framework for stablecoin regulation. Fine, but then it includes this specific language: payment stablecoin issuers and any affiliated platform cannot offer yield, interest, or returns on stablecoin holdings. Now stop and think about that for a second. That's not just Coinbase's yield products. That's not just Circle making money off reserves. If you're using Aave and depositing USDC to earn 4%, illegal. If you're on compound staking stablecoins, illegal. If you're using Morpho or Spark or any protocol that lets you earn from stablecoins, the language is broad enough to capture all of it. This isn't a slap on the wrist, this is a sledgehammer. Here's why Circle and Coinbase crashed so hard. Their entire business model depends on this. Circle makes money because USDC exists, and USDC is valuable specifically because you can actually earn returns on it. If that return goes away, why would anyone hold USDC instead of just keeping dollars in a bank? The incentive disappears. And Coinbase, they've built an entire product line around yield, staking, lending, yield-bearing accounts. It's not just revenue. For Coinbase, it's become a cornerstone of customer retention. The moment this bill went public, analysts started downgrading their forecasts. The stock price didn't catch up to reality gently. It fell. But here's where the story actually gets interesting, because this isn't random. This is planned. Follow the money. Traditional banks have hemorrhaged deposits over the last 3 years. When someone takes $10,000 out of their savings account, earning 0.5%, and puts it into a DeFi protocol earning 5%, that's not just a transaction. That's a direct transfer of revenue from the banking system to crypto. And the banking industry noticed. They've spent more on stablecoin-related lobbying in 2025 and 2026 than anything else. The American Bankers Association, the Bank Policy Institute, they're all filing comments in support of yield restrictions, and they're framing it as consumer protection. Cute. But the actual math is simple. If you ban yield on stablecoins, that money comes back to banks. Billions of it, every single year. So what does DeFi actually stand to lose? The numbers are massive. $40 billion locked in stablecoin lending protocols, $3 billion in annual revenue just from stablecoin yield products. Aave, Compound, Maker, these 3 protocols alone account for 60% of all on-chain stablecoin lending. But there's also Morpho, Spark, Ethena, and a dozen others sitting right in the crosshairs. If this passes, these protocols face a choice that isn't really a choice. Either block every US user or restructure everything overnight. But here's where it gets dangerous. Because when you ban a profitable financial activity in one country, it doesn't disappear. It moves. Think about what happened with crypto mining when China banned it in 2021. Hash rate didn't vanish. It migrated to the United States, Kazakhstan, Russia within months. When India slapped heavy taxes on crypto trading, where did the volume go? Offshore exchanges. If the Clarity Act passes, US users won't stop looking for yield. They'll move to protocols that don't answer to Congress. Protocols with no KYC, no insurance, no regulatory oversight, no recourse if something goes wrong. And here's the irony that should terrify policymakers. The stated goal is consumer protection. The actual result is pushing consumers into the darkest corners of the internet, where there's zero protection at all. It's the cure becoming worse than the disease. And this is important. There's an argument on the other side that actually has merit. What if regulation is good for DeFi? I know that sounds insane coming from a crypto channel, but stick with me. For 3 years, institutional money has sat completely on the sidelines of decentralized finance. Not because the yields aren't attractive, not because the technology doesn't work, because the legal framework is a black box. If the Clarity Act passes, and yes, that's a big if, but includes a pathway for compliant yield products, maybe through licensed intermediaries or registered protocols, something actually shifts. Institutional capital that's been frozen suddenly has clarity. It moves in. And DeFi gets access to capital at a scale it's never seen before. The separation of speculative yield from actually sustainable yield could be the moment DeFi transforms from a retail casino into legitimate financial infrastructure. That's the optimistic read. And whether it happens depends entirely on the final language the Senate actually votes on. So, what happens next? The bill is in the Senate Banking Committee right now, 3 co-sponsors from each party. The committee chair has already signaled that markup is coming within 60 days. This is happening fast. Industry response has been furious. Blockchain Association, Coin Center, multiple protocol foundations, all filed formal opposition. Coinbase launched a public campaign. Circle is lobbying quietly behind closed doors. Based on how crypto legislation has historically played out, the most likely scenario is that this passes in some amended form. The outright ban might get softened into a licensing requirement, but the direction is locked in. So what do you actually do about this? If you've got meaningful exposure to stablecoin yield on centralized platforms, this is the moment to audit your risk. Second, diversify your yield strategies across jurisdictions. Protocols operating outside the US are less exposed. Third, watch the committee markup obsessively. The specific language around what counts as yield and which entities are covered will determine whether this is catastrophic or just painful. Here's the fundamental question underneath all of this. Can DeFi actually thrive under regulation? Or does decentralized finance require complete freedom from traditional gatekeepers to even exist? That's not rhetorical. That's the question that determines whether the next decade is DeFi's golden age or its obituary. So what's your take? Does regulation end DeFi or evolve it? Drop it in the comments. This is Crypto IQ, where we follow the data, not the hype. Subscribe for the deep dives that cut through regulatory theatre and show you what actually matters for your portfolio.